The unbreakable cadets. Commander Xalfar of the Vortanian Empire stood at attention on the observation deck of Earth's primary military training facility. His 6-foot frame, covered in sleek obsidian scales, towered over the human liaison officer beside him. 4 powerful arms crossed his broad chest as his vertical pupils narrowed, studying the training grounds below. He had come to Earth expecting to find a weak species barely worthy of galactic notice. What he discovered instead would shake the foundations of everything he believed about strength. The Vortanian Empire had ruled their sector of the galaxy for millennia through superior physical prowess and advanced technology. When Earth petitioned to join the Galactic Alliance, many species scoffed. These fragile beings from a mid-tier gravity world, with their soft skin and single pair of limbs, seemed laughably inadequate for the harsh realities of interstellar conflict. The Alliance had sent Xalfar to assess their military capabilities, expecting a quick rejection. "Welcome to Training Facility Alpha," announced Colonel Sarah Chen, a compact human female who barely reached Xalfar's second shoulder. Despite her small stature, she carried herself with an authority that made the alien commander pause. "I understand you're here to evaluate whether humanity deserves a place in your military alliance." Xalfar's translator converted his rumbling response. "The Galactic Alliance maintains strict standards. No offense intended, Colonel, but your species lacks the basic physical requirements we typically seek. Your gravity is moderate, your bodies are fragile, and you possess no natural weapons or armor." Colonel Chen smiled. An expression Xalfar had learned indicated amusement among humans. "Physical attributes are just one measure of military capability, Commander. Shall we begin the tour?" They descended to the main training area where hundreds of human recruits engaged in various exercises. Xalfar watched with professional interest as squads ran obstacle courses, practiced hand-to-hand combat, and conducted weapons training. The movements were precise, coordinated, but nothing that impressed him particularly. Any Vortanian child could perform these tasks with ease. "This is our standard training program," Chen explained. "But I think you'll find our advanced facilities more interesting." She led him to a massive dome structure. As they entered, Xalfar's scales rippled in surprise. The gravity suddenly increased threefold, forcing him to adjust his stance. Human trainees moved through the area, their movements slower but determined. Some wore weighted gear that would crush members of less hardy species. "This is our enhanced gravity training center," Chen said, seemingly unaffected by the crushing force. "We train at up to 5 times Earth gravity. It helps prepare our soldiers for operations on heavy world planets." Xalfar watched a group of humans performing combat drills under conditions that would immobilize most galactic species. Their faces showed strain, sweat poured down their bodies, but they continued. When one stumbled, others helped them up without breaking formation. "Your bodies can withstand this?" Xalfar asked, his respect marginally increasing. "The human body is remarkably adaptable," Chen replied. "We may not be the strongest initially, but we can train ourselves to endure almost anything." Next, she showed him the environmental training chambers. Humans in protective gear moved through simulated alien atmospheres, toxic environments, and extreme temperatures. In one chamber, trainees navigated through thick methane fog. In another, they operated in near absolute zero conditions. "Most species train for their optimal environments," Chen noted. "We train for everything else." The endurance testing facility proved even more intriguing. Xalfar observed monitors showing humans in their 3rd day of continuous operations. No sleep, minimal food, constant physical and mental challenges. By Vortanian standards, they should have collapsed after the 1st day. "How do they maintain functionality?" Xalfar asked, genuinely puzzled. "Determination," Chen answered simply. "The human mind can push the body far beyond its apparent limits. We call it mind over matter." Xalfar watched a female trainee on the screens. Her eyes were bloodshot, her movements unsteady, but she continued solving complex tactical problems while maintaining defensive positions. When her squad mate faltered, she took on his responsibilities without complaint. Trainee Martinez has been awake for 71 hours, Chen informed him. She's maintained 87% combat effectiveness throughout. Her scores have actually improved in some areas as she's adapted to the fatigue. This defied everything Zalfar knew about biological limits. On his world, soldiers relied on their natural strength and endurance. When those failed, they accepted defeat. These humans seemed to find new reserves precisely when they should surrender. They moved to the Tactical Simulation Center where teams engaged in complex warfare scenarios. Zalfar watched humans coordinate attacks against vastly superior virtual enemies. They used deception, terrain advantages, and unconventional tactics to overcome numerical and technological disadvantages. One simulation showed a squad of 12 humans successfully defending against a battalion-sized force of simulated draconian warriors, one of the galaxy's most feared military species. The humans used guerrilla tactics, booby traps, and psychological warfare to systematically dismantle a force that should have crushed them in minutes. "They're not fighting fairly," Zalfar observed. "There's no such thing as a fair fight in war," Chen replied. "We teach our soldiers to use every advantage, create opportunities where none exist, and turn weaknesses into strengths." In the medical wing, Zalfar witnessed something that truly shocked him. Humans with injuries that would retire soldiers of other species were undergoing rehabilitation. A young man who had lost both legs was learning to use advanced prosthetics, his determination evident as he pushed through obvious pain to master his new limbs. Private Johnson lost his legs in a training accident 6 months ago, Chen explained. He'll return to active duty next month. His combat effectiveness scores are now higher than before his injury. Zalfar's 4 arms gestured in bewilderment. He could receive an honorable discharge. Why continue? Johnson overheard and answered directly. "Because I'm not done yet, sir. My squad needs me. A few missing parts won't change that." This attitude permeated the entire facility. Zalfar saw humans pushing themselves beyond all reasonable limits, helping each other when they fell, and refusing to accept defeat even in hopeless scenarios. They treated impossible odds as interesting challenges rather than insurmountable obstacles. In the Strategy Center, instructors presented trainees with no-win scenarios. Instead of accepting defeat, the humans spent hours devising creative solutions. Some worked, most didn't, but they never stopped trying. One group actually found a victory condition in a scenario designed to be unwinnable, exploiting an overlooked detail in the simulation parameters. As the day progressed, Zalfar found his initial assessment crumbling. These humans lacked natural armor, but they created better protection. They lacked multiple limbs, but their technology compensated. They lacked inherent weapons, but they crafted tools that surpassed biological alternatives. The Psychological Warfare Division demonstrated another unexpected strength. Humans understood fear, both their own and their enemies. They used psychological tactics that turned superior forces against themselves, exploiting overconfidence and cultural blind spots with surgical precision. "Your species seems to excel at finding unconventional solutions," Zalfar admitted as they concluded the first day's tour. Chen nodded. "Humanity evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. We survived by being adaptable, creative, and stubborn. Those traits serve us well in military applications." That evening, Zalfar observed the trainees during their off hours. Instead of resting, many continued training voluntarily. They helped struggling colleagues, shared techniques, and maintained the intense bonds that seemed to fuel their collective strength. He watched a group reviewing footage of their failed exercises, analyzing every mistake and planning improvements. Their instructor had dismissed them hours ago, but they remained, driven by internal motivation rather than external commands. One trainee, barely out of his teens, was practicing combat moves despite a clearly dislocated shoulder. When medical staff tried to intervene, he insisted on finishing his routine first. This wasn't bravado or stupidity. It was a deep-seated refusal to let pain dictate his limits. As Saltha retired to his quarters, he began composing his initial report. The words came slowly, each observation challenging his preconceptions. Humans weren't the strongest species, but they might be the most resilient. They weren't the fastest, but they never stopped. They weren't the smartest, but they found solutions others missed. The Vortanian military doctrine emphasized overwhelming force and natural superiority. Humans had neither, yet they consistently achieved results that should be impossible. They turned every disadvantage into a teaching opportunity, every defeat into motivation for improvement. Tomorrow would bring combat demonstrations and the infamous Hell Week graduation exercise. Based on today's observations, Zolthar suspected these humans would continue to defy his expectations. He found himself looking forward to it, a sensation he hadn't experienced in decades of military service. As he sealed his preliminary report, one thought dominated his mind. The Galactic Alliance might need to revise its definition of strength. The hidden warrior spirit. Dawn broke over Training Facility Alpha as Commander Zolthar joined Colonel Chen at the combat demonstration grounds. Overnight, his subordinates on the orbiting Vortanian cruiser had analyzed his preliminary report with skepticism. They couldn't comprehend how a physically inferior species could pose any real military value. Today's demonstrations would either validate or shatter his emerging theories about human capability. The arena sprawled before them, a configurable battlefield that could simulate any combat environment. Human trainees assembled in formation, their faces showing anticipation rather than fear. Zolthar noticed something different about their demeanor today, an intensity that hadn't been present during yesterday's training exercises. Today, you'll see our people in dynamic combat situations, Chen explained. We've prepared several scenarios to demonstrate different aspects of human warfare. The first demonstration began with what should have been a straightforward superiority display. 12 humans faced off against combat robots programmed with Kandarian warrior protocols, one of the galaxy's most formidable fighting styles. The robots possessed superior strength, speed, and reaction times. By all logical metrics, the humans should have been overwhelmed in seconds. Instead, Zolthar watched in amazement as the humans implemented a fluid strategy that shifted constantly. They didn't try to match the robot's physical capabilities. Instead, they used psychology, even against machines. They feinted, misdirected, and created false patterns that confused the robot's prediction algorithms. One human, a small female trainee, deliberately took a glancing blow to position herself behind a robot's guard. The injury was real. Zolthar saw blood seep through her uniform. But she used the moment to disable the machine with a precisely placed explosive charge. She rolled away, cradling her wounded side, already coordinating with her team for the next assault. She's injured, Zolthar observed. Why not withdraw for medical attention? Watch, Chen replied simply. The wounded trainee continued fighting. Her movements adapted to protect her injury while maintaining combat effectiveness. Her squad mates seamlessly adjusted their formation to cover her weakened side without being asked. When she finally stumbled, another trainee was already there to steady her, allowing her to deliver the finishing blow to another robot. The humans won through coordinated sacrifice, tactical creativity, and an absolute refusal to yield. Each fighter seemed to draw strength from their teammates' determination. Zolthar had never seen such seamless unity among warriors who weren't telepathically linked. The second demonstration involved environmental warfare. Human teams operated in a toxic atmosphere that would kill most species within minutes. Their protective gear was deliberately minimal, standard military equipment rather than full environmental suits. They had to complete complex objectives while managing limited oxygen and dealing with corrosive elements. Zolthar watched one team's Rebbrother unit malfunction. Instead of panicking, they implemented a sharing protocol, passing functional units between team members as needed. Everyone accepted increased risk to ensure mission completion. When toxic gas breached one soldier's mask, his teammates formed a protective shield around him, using their bodies to create a pocket of cleaner air while repairs were made. In Vortanian military doctrine, that soldier would be evacuated immediately, Zalfar commented. In human doctrine, we adapt and overcome, Chen responded. Every challenge is an opportunity to prove we're stronger than our circumstances. The psychological warfare demonstration proved even more illuminating. Human operatives faced captured Saurian mercenaries, a species known for their mental fortitude and resistance to interrogation. The humans didn't use force or threats. Instead, they employed complex psychological tactics that gradually eroded the Saurian certainty. They created false realities, manipulated perception of time, and used the Saurians' own cultural beliefs against them. Within hours, hardened mercenaries were providing intelligence willingly, convinced they were serving their own interests. It was a masterclass in understanding and exploiting cognitive biases. Your species seems to understand the mind as a battlefield, Zalfar observed. Chen nodded. The strongest armor and sharpest weapons mean nothing if the will to use them breaks. Humans learned long ago that true victory often happens in the mind before the body. The afternoon brought the most impressive display yet, the tactical innovation trials. Human teams were presented with impossible scenarios and forbidden from using standard solutions. They had to improvise everything from weapons to strategies using only available materials and their creativity. One scenario involved defending a position against a vastly superior aerial force without anti-aircraft weapons. The human team created a complex series of mirrors and focused sunlight to blind enemy sensors. They used controlled explosions to create dust clouds that disrupted targeting systems. They even turned their supposed weakness, lack of air capability, into psychological warfare by making the enemy doubt their intelligence about human resources. Another team faced simulated Siren-heavy armor with only small arms. They dug pit traps covered with holograms, used sonic weapons created from communications equipment to disorient crew members, and employed chemical compounds that corroded specific weak points in the armor's joints. Every solution was unorthodox, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. Zalfar found himself leaning forward, genuinely excited to see what impossible solution the humans would devise next. Their creativity seemed limitless, their determination unshakable. Each team built upon previous solutions, learning and adapting at a rate that defied conventional military training timelines. Then came the moment that truly changed Zalfar's perspective forever. During a live-fire exercise, equipment malfunctioned, putting several trainees in real danger. A plasma conduit ruptured, threatening to incinerate an entire squad. Without hesitation, Sergeant Torres threw himself onto the breach, using his body to contain the explosion while his team evacuated. The protective systems activated just in time to save Torres' life, but not before he suffered severe burns. As medical teams rushed in, Torres' only concern was whether his squad had completed their objective. When told they had, he smiled through obvious agony. Why? Zalfar asked Chen, genuinely struggling to understand. He knew the safety systems might not activate in time. He could have died. Because they're his family, Chen explained. Humans form bonds that transcend self-preservation. We call it esprit de corps, the spirit of the unit. Torres would rather die than let his team down. Zalfar watched the squad gather around their injured leader, each member reaching out to touch his shoulder or arm. The gesture was simple but profound. In that moment, he saw something beyond mere military efficiency. These humans had transformed their biological weaknesses into social strengths that multiplied their combat effectiveness exponentially. The final event was the infamous Hell Week graduation exercise. For 7 days, trainee teams would face continuous challenges designed to push them past all physical and mental limits. Past years had seen completion rates below 50%. This year's scenario was supposedly the hardest ever devised. Zalfar positioned himself in the command center to observe. The exercise began with immediate intensity. Trainees paradropped into a hostile environment with minimal equipment. They faced simulated enemy forces, environmental hazards, resource scarcity, and constantly evolving objectives. By day 3, most teams showed severe degradation. Sleep deprivation, malnutrition, and continuous stress had taken their toll. Several alien species would have experienced complete physical collapse by this point. The humans looked terrible, but kept functioning. Team 7 caught Salthar's particular attention. Led by trainee Captain Maria Rodriguez, they had suffered the worst luck: equipment failures, ambushes, and weather events that seemed deliberately stacked against them. By day 4, 2 members were seriously injured, their food supplies were exhausted, and they were pursued by a superior force. Rodriguez made a decision that stunned even experienced instructors. Instead of seeking easier terrain, she led her team into the most dangerous area of the exercise zone, a region called the Devil's Throat. The pursuing force assumed it was a desperate error born of exhaustion. It was actually brilliant strategy. Rodriguez had noticed patterns in the exercise design and realized the most dangerous area would also contain hidden supply catches for medical emergencies. She risked everything on this deduction, leading her battered team through hazards that claimed 40% of their remaining equipment. They found the catches. More importantly, they used the dangerous terrain to set traps for their pursuers. Exhausted humans who could barely stand somehow coordinated complex ambushes that eliminated a theoretically superior force. They turned their desperate situation into tactical advantage through sheer force of will. On day 6, something extraordinary happened. Team 3, which had been performing exceptionally well, deliberately shared their supplies with Team 7. This wasn't part of the exercise parameters. Teams were supposed to compete, not cooperate. But the humans had decided that collective success mattered more than individual victory. The instructors allowed it, curious to see the outcome. The merged teams not only survived but achieved objectives considered impossible for their degraded state. They carried injured members across killing fields, shared their last water rations without complaint, and fought with determination that grew stronger as their bodies grew weaker. The exercise concluded with unprecedented results. Every single team completed the course, a first in the exercise's history. More remarkably, they achieved this by helping each other, turning competition into cooperation without being instructed to do so. As the battered trainees assembled for final review, Salthar studied their faces. Exhausted, injured, pushed beyond all reasonable limits, they stood straight and proud. Some could barely remain upright, but they supported each other without shame or hesitation. Their eyes held something Salthar had rarely seen in warriors, not just strength or determination, but genuine joy in their shared accomplishment. Colonel Chen stood beside him as the graduation ceremony began. "What's your assessment now, Commander?" Zalthar was silent for a long moment, watching humans who should be hospitalized instead celebrating their achievements. They had transformed suffering into strength, limitation into innovation, and individual weakness into collective power. "I need to revise my entire understanding of military capability," he finally admitted. "Your species has no right to be this effective. You've turned every disadvantage into an advantage through sheer determination and creativity. You've made weakness irrelevant through unity and adaptation." The ceremony proceeded with each trainee receiving their certification. Some limped to the podium, others were helped by squad mates, but all made it. The final graduate was Private Johnson, the soldier with prosthetic legs Salthar had met earlier. He didn't walk to receive his certificate. He ran, his mechanical limbs carrying him with speed that exceeded his original capabilities. As the ceremony concluded, Salthar began composing his final report. His recommendation would shock the Galactic Alliance, but he had no doubts about his conclusion. Humanity didn't just deserve a place in the Alliance, they might revolutionize it entirely. That evening, he met with Chen one last time. "I have questions about your training philosophy," he said. "How do you consistently achieve these results?" Chen smiled. "We don't train soldiers, Commander. We reveal the warrior that already exists in every human. Our species survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and each other. That legacy lives in our genes. We just help people remember what they're capable of." Zolthar's final report to the Galactic Alliance was brief but revolutionary. Subject: Human Military Assessment. Priority revision required. The human species represents a paradigm shift in military capability. While lacking traditional physical advantages, they possess unquantifiable strengths that multiply their effectiveness beyond standard metrics. Their primary weapons are adaptability, determination, and unity. They transform obstacles into opportunities and weakness into strength through collective will. Recommendation: immediate full membership in the Galactic Alliance. Furthermore, suggest comprehensive study of human training methods and psychological warfare capabilities. Their approach to military science could benefit all member species. Personal note: I arrived expecting to evaluate an inferior species. I leave humbled by warriors who redefine the meaning of strength. The galaxy needs to learn what humans can teach about the true nature of combat effectiveness. The unstoppable force within humanity's ranks isn't their technology or physical prowess. It's their indomitable spirit and their absolute refusal to accept defeat. That may be the most powerful weapon in the known universe. As his ship departed Earth's orbit, Commander Xalfar looked back at the blue-green world that had changed his perspective forever. He had witnessed something remarkable. A species that had turned their entire evolutionary history of struggle into a source of strength. The Galactic Alliance was about to discover that humans didn't just participate in warfare, they transformed it into something altogether more formidable. The greatest shock wasn't their physical capabilities or technological innovation. It was the simple, profound truth that humans had weaponized the one thing no other species had thought to enhance: their unconquerable will to survive, adapt, and overcome anything the universe could throw at them. The galaxy would never be the same.